My mom says, you know what? I need you to check the gun I keep in your room just in case she wants to use it on you. She walks with her back to me, turns around, takes a picture of me holding the gun, laughs, and says, I got a picture of that. 2 weeks later, I confronted her about an affair, and she basically called the cops and said I threatened to kill her with a loaded weapon.
You know, probably the hardest person right now is our comedian trying to figure out how to make this shit funny. Divorce can be absolutely brutal, and this next caller has found that out with multiple custody issues and being accused of abusing his child. Warning, this episode is going to be tough. William says that he has a assault with a deadly weapon charge. There's a divorce going on. There's a custody battle. William, where the heck do we begin on this call?
Oh man, it's complicated, but I'll keep it simple, my friends. Yeah, so the 10 years of being married and kind of culminated in a basically accusation of an affair. And the incident itself was curious enough because it had a witness. Me and the ex-wife had uh, been living with my mom, and we were spring cleaning. My mom says, "You know what? I need you to check the gun I keep in your room, which was for home self-defense. Please check it. Just make sure that she hasn't touched it, just in case she wants to use it on you." So
She
I
being your
told her,
wife.
correct, correct. And so I told her I'm confident enough that she wouldn't do that, but I go to check it. It was kept properly unloaded in a box, a lock box. And so I speak from the room that the gun is in, and I say, "Hey, it's unloaded, just to remind you." And she's doing laundry and ignoring me. So I bring the weapon with no magazine, with no round in the chamber, bring it to the room that she's in where my mom can see. And I show her basically the empty magazine. I point it up in the air and reach it out to basically say, "Hey, it's unloaded and I want you to come here, show me you know how to take the safety off," all that kind of good stuff.
To who? Come here
To
to your.
to my ex-wife. And so basically trying to demonstrate to her, "Hey, remember it's kept unloaded." She walks with her back to me and then opens her camera, turns around, takes a picture of me holding the gun. She laughs and says, I got a picture of that. And I told her, just please delete that. What are you doing? And so my mom witnesses this, kind of think it's dumb, but at the end of the day, nothing necessarily happened. But then 2 weeks later, I confronted her about an affair, and she basically called the cops. And long story short, said I threatened to kill her with a loaded weapon. And so
Lot
they,
to unpack there.
yeah,
Holy
I heard a
cow.
couple things that give me pause with questions. Did you?
Yeah, jump right in. Jump right in. I'm
All right.
digesting.
I'm gonna break this down. So, I think that you're glossing over some arguments. Is that a fair? You've kind of skimmed over some very contentious arguments that you guys are having in between these events.
yeah, in the preceding events, definitely arguments, but at that time, that day, there was actually, it was very civil. There was actually no arguing going around. So the picture that basically becomes a
I get
big
it. I get
fact.
it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna interrupt you a little because I'm trying to get to the picture.
yes,
And
sir.
what happens is if you're looking at a mural and you walk right up to it and you put your face on it, you can't see the whole thing. And that's what happens to people that are going through divorce, that are going through breakups. You're so close to it, you can't see it. And I feel like you're being honest with us. You're trying to talk with us, and we're trying to help you. But I need to take a couple steps back. So I'm interrupting you to make sure that we're getting the step back questions. Okay?
Of course.
So when did the topic of divorce first come up? Was it before or after this gun incident?
Certainly before.
Okay. How much longer before?
Months. We had been discussing it, but we had kids together. So at the time, it was simply enough for me, the stay together for the kids mantra, and putting up with the, obviously discouraging elements to a dead or dying marriage.
How many kids?
6.
And approximately how long before this incident had you first mentioned divorce?
At least a year, because
Okay.
it had been,
Okay.
yeah, it had been a topic of conversation.
You're trying to make it work. Had either of you hired a lawyer or filed divorce proceedings?
No, sir.
Okay. Your mom lived with you for how long?
We were living with her, and we had been with her for at least 8 years.
Okay, and she'd heard a lot of this, and
Yes.
that's not right. 6 kids? Was that what you said?
6.
Yes, sir.
Pullout game weak.
Okay, I thought so. You have 6 kids together. How old is the youngest?
3.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
How long have you been married?
We had been married almost a full decade.
Give me an idea of when the topic of divorce came up. Was it maybe we should get a divorce? Was it I'm going to divorce you and leave your ass? Was it I can't deal with you anymore? Like what kind of tell me how the divorce topic would come up.
I bet she brought it up.
There's a reason I'm getting to this. I know before you.
Yeah, of course. And I trust
Is this
your.
clear where I'm going, or you don't know where I'm going with this?
I bet she
I'm
brought
just
it up.
enthralled. I'm enthralled.
Okay.
I'm enthralled.
Did she bring it up?
Obviously, where you started the story, there had already been divorce that had been planned. She was clearly taking a photograph, whether she was in real danger or not. She was like, "I'm going to photograph this for the purpose of building a case against my husband."
Correct.
So the
Correct.
idea of winning in a divorce was already present at the time. And I don't know, just talking to you right now, if you were showing the gun in a way. Like, I always have to be skeptical of you and of anyone that calls in. Who's in the right and who's in the wrong? You might have been brandishing the gun. I don't know. But
Sir,
I mean,
at an absolute,
it doesn't sound like it to me. So let's.
it doesn't
ask
sound like it to me either.
Right.
I'm just
so
going.
let's-
I'm not untoned. I'm leaving every stone unturned.
The interesting thing too is I was able to get a copy of the picture, and what had happened was after she had basically declined to, come actually get the gun. I actually had pulled it back and I had my hand, not only my finger obviously was off of the trigger completely as you would safely hold it, but my hand was actually on the top of the gun just to
And
as a
you're
testing it.
You're describing the picture as her basically taking a selfie with you behind her with the weapon.
She had turned around and just took it, and so it's not a selfie per se, just turning
She-
around and taking a normal
She
picture.
walked away, turned around, turned on her camera, and then she quickly turned around, took a picture of him. Is that correct?
Correct.
Now,
your
were you
hand-
smiling in the picture?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Honestly, I was more kind of just confused in the picture if you look at it, but the picture is the basis of the the charge.
Where are the charges at right now? You said you were charged with it. Were you convicted? Plea deal? What's
Yeah,
going on?
so that I was basically recently took a plea deal because it was either go to trial or to basically take the plea, because as you know, they say a deferred adjudication is not a conviction, and if you go to trial and lose, you are stuck with the conviction.
And so tell us a little bit more about your plea deal. Are you so you've got deferred adjudication or probation?
I had to take a deferred adjudication for an 8-year probation with all of its various terms.
8 years. It's
a long
almost as
time.
long as your marriage.
Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that this is having an impact potentially on the divorce and custody proceedings.
Yes, it's pretty interesting. And so the week, this is kind of relevant details, but the week after I got arrested, she got arrested for abandoning 2 kids at a golf course and had to go to basically, instead of jail, to medical evaluation.
Hey,
So
so
she
got 4
ended
more
up-
kids. Doesn't seem that serious. Okay, sorry.
And so basically the argument was, I was, she was saying I was, also not only a threat to her, but a threat to the kids. And as you know, in the state of Texas, the Texas Family Code, once you have a charge of my nature, it very easily grants the mother the custodial rights, as you can imagine. But we were, arguing, well, at least the relevant information of who's a threat to the kids or who's not a threat to the kids was coming up in the civil side.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's where some of these can go. And what's bothering you the most about this very moment that you're trying to figure out what are the next steps?
Yeah, it's basically, as you know, I love my kids, and the reality of the matter is, kind of submitting to what the Texas Family Code precedent is, and knowing that a mother in this incident would get the sole managing conservatorship, but the idea of visitation with kids and the efforts to at least see my kids to the fullest extent that the law allows.
You sound like you're a good person that is pretty even keeled about this. I've talked to a lot of people that have gone through divorces, contentious divorces, far less contentious than this, that have a lot more anger in their heart. What what would you hope to talk to us about? What would you like us to give you counsel on or try to assist you with?
Yeah, as far as, the when you handle, because criminal and civil is so obviously significantly different, but as far as um in the post game of a probation or deferred adjudication, what kind of the course of action for somebody who's now just treading water and, obviously 8 years, max, the idea of what, if anything, can be done to, reduce time because, good behavior and all that good jazz. And then on the civil side, it's just the idea of like what is the kind of even, precedent for what fathers are allowed, even to the point of like, for example, a parent has to stay in contiguous counties or stuff of that nature, because it's really the kids are the victims, in my opinion. I don't really ever want to play the victim. Like, I do believe that it's unfortunate, but I stay and keeping a good sense of humor about it, and then basically really just caring about the kids and how it impacts my kids and what I can do for my kids.
Are you talking to do you have a family attorney or a criminal attorney right now?
Yeah, so the criminal side being resolved, if you will, is kind of, no more interaction with that criminal attorney, but the civil side wrapping up soon is definitely conferring with her and trying to just trust her because, as you know, that they're the
Who's her?
professionals.
Trust her. That's your
Attorney.
Ex-
Oh, yeah, the attorney. Sorry.
okay.
So on this front, what I would say is obviously you want to talk to your attorney and make sure that she has all of the facts and information, because I think most folks would understand that on the face of it, these charges and the fact that you had to go through a plea deal are still going to have a factor that bear on your ability to see the kids. But a lot of the times in these circumstances, the judges need to know all of the facts. How can you get all of the relevant facts in front of this judge so that they can make a holistic decision? Because there's a much different scenario between someone who has actually threatened, done all these other things versus the circumstance that you're talking about here. Unfortunately, the reality of agreeing to a plea deal, even if that ended up being the right thing to do, is it makes it harder to then go back and dispute the underlying issues, right? That's just the reality of it. But your family attorney will put you in the best position to argue in front of the family court about how to make sure you still get the ability to see your kids.
I'm interested. Did your family attorney have a joint conversation with your criminal defense attorney? Was there communication
No.
back and forth there? Or any opinions there?
And I think what happened, this is just maybe an opinion, but the civil side definitely seems stalled or delayed until the criminal side, in a sense, gave leverage to the civil side. Because, in theory, if I had fought it, they would not have wanted to pursue all they wouldn't have obviously as much leverage as you can
Correct.
imagine. And so I think that's kind of why there was definitely no, coordination, because the two processes were essentially separate.
Well, they are separate, but I can see why your ex-wife wanted to let it lay low, because if you had fought it and won, then it would not have barely any, if maybe no effect at all on the family case. But now that you've taken the plea deal, it's in the record, right?
Correct.
This exists, and it can then still, in some form or fashion, be used in the family court, which is unfortunate. It may be the reality of what had to happen, but it's still going to be there. It's still going to be something that's happening. What do you think that your ex-wife is? What is she asking for right now that's different? Is she trying to take the kids away entirely?
Yes, actually, she would take every penny, take just about everything. She's asking
Mm.
for my, even my bed and my pillows, kind of thing. But it's funny because, I happily would give her all these other material things, but and I'd give her all the money I could as long as the kids are provided for. But it is the going back to just like what's kind of the precedent for when I get to see my kids, when I get to see them, and versus, parents, custodial parents leverage in that situation to obviously take kids away from a father. And my understanding is basically, outside of being an actual threat with evidence to a child, the courts in the state of Texas want the father to be in their kids' lives.
They do. That's the standard ways. They
Yeah.
do understand the value a two-parent home and having not in that instance, then having both parents be involved in the lives of their children. And there are folks who have even worse charges that have happened or that they have pled to or other things like that, that they still get the opportunity to see their kids. Everything is very case by case because there's so much of what I'm about to use a legal term is called equity. What's fair under the circumstances. That's why I said get as much of that information in front of the judge so they understand that this really isn't a case of a violent person or someone who is really meaning harm to mom or the kids or anything like that, but rather you had to make the best decision you could about these bullshit charges, and it shouldn't impact the way that you get to live with your kids or that you get to see them. The reality is that it probably will in a negative way, and you're just going to try to have to mitigate that. Josh?
The term that I'm hearing or feeling is railroaded. I mean, it
Yeah.
feels like you've been railroaded from the start. Probably the hardest person right now is our comedian trying to figure out how to make this shit funny. But
Oh no, I already know how.
He's
know
over
because
here.
I'm not a lawyer. I can tell you exactly how to fix this. Actually,
okay, that's that.
Come on.
The show just got dark.
No, we
I,
can
I
fix
want to
this.
tell you that based on what you're telling me, okay, you're a victim here, and based on what you're telling me, your kids are victims here, and you need to stay in communication with your family law attorney. You need to make sure that that attorney understands everything that is. I'm sure she does understand everything that's happened so far, but you cannot take care of other people when you don't take care of yourself. And if you're saying, "Oh, I'll give her all material things," you got to eat. You got to be present in your kid's life. You can't let yourself get to a position of weakness to where she then uses that to further keep you out of the kid's life. So, man, I wish we had a resolution or easy thing here, but you're in for a long fight here, and you have my support and you have my emotions, man. That's what I'm.
Yeah.
You're heard today is the best I can say for you.
William, this is what you need to do. Okay, let her take the kids for the time being, and then you go get you a younger girl, and then when you go pick up the kids for the weekend trip, she's gonna be like, "Oh crap." And then just say you're going on vacation. You don't have to go on vacation with the new girl. She's gonna be like, "Here, keep the kids. I'm gonna go." She's gonna keep pawning the kids off on you, so you don't go do anything fun. And then you can get rid of the hooker. Just pay $100 and be like, "Hey, get out of here." And just now you have kids all the time. Sure, you got to pay child support, and then you can say, "Your Honor, look, I've been taking care of the kids the whole time." So then when she goes to court, she's gonna look like crazy girl because there's no hooker there, there's no girl there. You've been just taking care of the kids with all 6 of them the whole time and paying for them. So maybe and not beating them, hopefully. So that's what I would
right.
do.
Show up
Actually,
to
I've
court
done
with-
this. Actually, I've done this with a friend of mine, and it works like a charm. I am not joking you. I promise I've done this. It works like a charm. He had 2 kids, but it works like a charm.
The next
got to
call,
show up to court with a hot date.
right. So the next call we're going to have is Sib calling in for some child custody fraud. I like the creativity. 10 points creativity, legality, not so much. Okay, so William, you've got to be talking to your lawyer. But I think the one thing that I do want to do, and we talked about this on some of our other calls in medical situations, it might be worth a conversation to get a second opinion about how you're going to present this in the best light possible in the next family court hearing. I have no reason to believe that your current family court attorney is not good or approaching it the right way, but it may be worth paying a little bit of money to get a consult with someone else to see if they might have a different take, to make sure that you don't look back and go, "Man, I wish I had done more at that hearing." What we'll do is give you some resources to be able to talk to someone else who may be able to have dealt with this particular situation, a not standard criminal case assault that had to be pled out, and dealing with these 6 kids and your ability to see them. I think that's another good option. Josh, any thoughts on that?
I think Bill pretty much wrapped it up, and I think Sib said absolutely nothing of value. So
It works. It works. Just don't show them this episode, and I'm telling you, it works.
okay.
That's
All
right.
right. Thank you so much.
Law is not always
thank
the
you so
answer.
much for calling in. I appreciate it. Thank you, William.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you,
It was a great show,
William.
guys.
Thanks,
See you later.
William.
Appreciate it.
That one was, I think, the most brutal call that we've had so far.
It's really unfortunate. I've seen these situations. Actually, when I was in undergrad, I worked at a legal office in the Attorney General's office in Missouri, and a gentleman was paying child support. A white gentleman with a white wife was paying child support for a number of African American children because he did not challenge the custody in time.
Oh.
Presumption of paternity.
Yes,
Yeah.
not ideal. You should check. But this is railroad. This is railroad. You said it right off the bat.
At
Choo-choo.
what point do you stop paying child support? After how many kids do you stop paying child support where courts like this is hopeless?
I think it's 44 is the legal amount.
Really?
Yeah, 44.
So he just needs to go out and procreate more.
Yeah. But I think you have to pay for 39 and 40 and 41 and
Yeah, but
I'm
what are you
also
gonna
just
do?
kidding.
Like $1 each at that point at 44 kids? I mean,
They're already taking the man's bed, Sib. What else do you want them to take?
he'll figure it out. He seems like a very resourceful person.
I do like
think-
William. I
I like
him.
him.
He sounds like a good guy. He sounds like a guy with his head on his shoulders.
So between this show and Not Your Lawyer, we have a lot of people that call in. By the way, don't forget to call in if you're watching at home or you have an issue you want to talk about. Some people are not sympathetic. They're not going to make it to air. I've had several people try to get on my shows where they're like, "Yeah, my ex is a bitch, and I want to drag her through the mud, and I want to expose her and her lies and her cheating." I didn't get an ounce,
Not
a
an ounce
fraction
of
of
that.
an ounce from that. In fact, even by the way he told us the first story, you could tell he was trying to diminish the conflict. You could tell he was trying to be a peacemaker, and he's done that at the expense of himself and maybe his kids. So be very careful who you marry. If you're watching at home, and
The best way to get married is
I
to
wish
not
I had
get
another
married.
takeaway. These things happen. I think that's the biggest one. Not trying to sweep it under the rug, because I think the wrong thing to do is to say, "Oh, well, that's cleanly resolved. On to the next episode." This is something that's going to stay with this man for at least the length of these youngest kid subtracted by the number of
3.
18.
Yep,
Yeah,
15.
so 15,
Yeah, 15 more years.
year situation.
Yeah.
And you just got to hope that with some time, the ex-wife cools off and becomes more of a mother and sees herself as a mother instead of the ex. Because once you start seeing yourself as a mother, then you go, well, this is clearly a good dad that loves his kids and cares.
Yeah.
Probably was also a good.
Look, if she can go from 2 abandoned kids at the golf course to 1, that's real improvement.
And hey, you
That's
should never abandon kids. I don't
50%,
care how many
100%
kids you have.
improvement,
Okay,
50%
I think that's going to do it for this one. If you have a crazy legal story and you want to talk to some lawyers anonymously, for free, call us.
Wait, we're not getting paid?
Nothing at all. I don't know how we're going to pay for it, to be honest.